Hey everybody, it's Monday morning and this week's tip is actually about probably the one thing aside from typical setups that cost people the most fish when they're fishing, and that is the hook. So, you know, when you go out and you figure out what the proper rod and reel and line and you know how to tie your knots and you kind of got everything figured out, there's that little pesky thing called the hook that's really the end point between you and the fish and whether you land it. And I think one of the biggest problems I see a lot of people doing is they're mismatching the type of hook, and I'm not talking the shape of the hook. I'm talking the actual thickness or the diameter or the power of the hook to the combo they're using. Let's break this down a couple ways, and first, let's go through the types of hooks that there actually are. Now, everyone's seen a standard and what I would call a regular hook, but there's also what we call fine wire or ultralight hooks. Ultralight hooks typically are used for smaller fish, finesse applications, but most importantly, they're matched up with lighter lines and lighter rod and reel combos. So you're not gonna wanna fish a medium heavy or a heavy rod, or you're not gonna wanna fish braid when you're using a fine wire or ultralight hook. Typical applications in clear water, you'll see a lot of guys when they're drop shotting or trout fishing or pan fishing use ultralight hooks or fine wire hooks. They have to be matched to the setup. Your standard hook is basically your jack of all trades. You can get away with fishing small fish on lighter combos, and you can get away with handling some bigger fish, but ultimately your regular hooks are designed to be, I'd call them a jack of all trades. The next group you'll find is heavy wire hooks, or 1X, or you'll see the number 2X written on them. Braided line has really invented an entirely new category of hooks for anglers. Because braided line has zero stretch, and the diameter is so small that people can use heavier pound tests in their setups, hook manufacturers actually had to develop new hooks, and what they call, some manufacturers like Gamakatsu will call them super line hooks. Other manufacturers like Mustad will use terminology like 2X strong. No matter who the manufacturer, whether it's owner, Gamakatsu, Eagle Claw, whoever it is, whatever hooks you prefer, take a good look and look if you're using braid. You're gonna wanna go to the 1X minimum, 2X most likely, heavy wire or super line hooks. What happens when you're using mono versus braid? The breakdown is very simple. If you're using a technique that you're using fluorocarbon or monofilament, I tell people use regular wire hooks or fine wire hooks. But if you're using braided line, you're gonna need to beef your hook up one level. So whether it's a 1X, 2X, super line hook, whatever the deal is, breaking it down by hook, I would suggest if you're using fine wire or ultralight hooks, you use ultralight, light, medium light rods. Okay, so pound tests, you're gonna wanna use the lightest pound tests available. 2, 4, 6, up to 8 pound test fluorocarbon or mono, or braids up to a maximum of 10 pound test. If you're using regular wire hooks, you can kind of go from 6 pound test to 8, 10, 12, 14, even up to 16 pound test on mono or fluoro. But if you're fishing braid, you're gonna wanna be in that 8, 10, 15, 20 pound braid on regular wire hooks. And if you're using heavier stuff, like 1X hooks or 2X hooks, or what they consider to be super line hooks, that's when you're gonna get into that 30, 40, 50, 65, and even 80 pound braid. So matching the strength, diameter, or thickness of your hook is equally as important to match it to the fish, to the technique you're fishing, and most importantly to the combo, because that is the one mistake I see a ton of people make, and it costs people fish each and every day. That's it this week, folks. Hopefully this one helped you out. This one was all about hooks and matching them to your setups. Next time you're heading out on the water, take a good look at the hooks you're using, whether it's on a jig head, or your Texas rigging, or your drop shotting, or it's an open hook trout situation, because the diameter of your hook will help you land more fish when it's matched properly.